Welcome. My name is Lester Brown. I'm Vice President of LL Brown and Associates. I really want to apologize to you for not being able to be with you today. And so, since I couldn't be there with you, I decided to bring you to me in my office. And coming to you through multimedia, the video process, is a very interesting way and exciting way to get messages across when you're not there with the people that you want to be with. Anyway, the purpose of this videotape is to share with you the attitudes of winners and to also present to you the concepts behind this book called 90 Days and Beyond, 31 Essentials that a person needs to retain employment and advancement on the job. Now, everyone that's watching this videotape right now should have this book in their possession. And if you don't, maybe this is a great opportunity for all of the summer youth coordinators and other workers to hand this out to the people that's participating in the program. So let's take care of that. Now, I would like to start off by sharing with you an experience that I've had over the past couple of years. And it was one of the greatest events that's ever taken place in my life. I had the great opportunity of being able to study as well as work with some of the Olympians in the 1996 Olympic Games. I learned more from them than they learned from me. I learned that they understood two principles about becoming a champion. Now, when I share these principles with you about an attitude of a champion, I don't want you to think that you got to go out and play basketball or run track or be like an Olympian. That's one phase of it. But a champion could be a champion in school, a champion of life, a champion in your family, or a champion on the job. But it's an attitude that all winners have and all high performance people has. Now, one of the principles is, listen very carefully, only those that can see the invisible can do the impossible. You want to know something that I learned? Many of the Olympians knew they were going to be in the Olympics when they were 10 and 12 years old. It was unbelievable the strong belief that they had about becoming an Olympian champion. Now, what you got to understand is this. Others couldn't see that. So just think about this. When you were 10 or 12 years old, what if you would go around talking to people and friends that you knew saying that, you know, when I get 18, I'm going to the Olympic Games? Remember this again, only those that can see the invisible can do the impossible. By them understanding this and by them knowing that they were going to be there caused them to do things that ordinary people wouldn't do. They performed extraordinary. This caused them to get up very early in the morning. Some of the people in events like swimming, you know, they had to get up they started out very young, getting up in the morning at 5 o'clock. They would go out and practice. And after practice, they would go to school. And after school, then they would go back to practice again. And some of these kids have been doing this for 10 and 12 and 14 years. How tough are you? There was another thing that they understood. And the second principle was mental practice is equivalent to physical practice. All of the Olympians that I met, you want to know something? They practice their performance in their mind every day over and over and over before they went out and actually practice physically. Now, oftentimes, many of the times, 98% of the times I would say, the performance that they had in here was the exact performance that they got out there. Now, there is a law that really let's say, support this theory, and it's called the law of the mind. The things that you think about over and over and over every day will eventually materialize. Now, there was something else that I learned. All of the Olympians were strong goal setters. And when they came to the Olympics, they had two specific goals, one specific goal, but they were divided into two sections. Some of the people, now remember these are world-class athletes, some of them came and their goal was to get to the Olympics. Others, their goal was to win a gold medal. Now you got to understand there wasn't enough gold medals to go around. And this is what separated the group from the winners and those that came to participate. Now there was a great event that demonstrated this. This event was called gymnastics, and specifically in the vault. And if you remember, if you saw the Olympic Games, then you will remember the gymnastics. There was the U.S. only need one decent score to win a gold medal. We had 2 participants left in the event. One of the participants, the first participant, was her turn to actually do the vault, to demonstrate her skills. She filed out. The next participant was a girl by the name of Carrie Scruggs, and right now I think she's about 20 years old. But at that particular time, she did the same thing. She filed out, but something happened to her. She injured her ankle. Excruciating pain. Now, this is something very interesting because with that pain, it was almost unbelievable that she would go on. But let me explain something to you. When you come to win, you don't feel pain. When you come to win, you overcome all adversity. When you come to win, you don't see obstacles, you see opportunities. And that young lady, she continued, and even though she had the injury, she went on to make almost a perfect score. Now, that's the attitude of a winner. Now, this book, I'm going to talk to you about how to be a champion on the job. All champions think this way. Now, it has an awful lot to about understanding about the power that you have. I want to say this, and then I'm going to tell you, share a little bit about myself with you. Every one of you have everything that you need already inside of you to be successful. And I don't care where you come from, your background, or what you're doing. Every one of you have everything that you need to be successful in life. Now, if you look at my surroundings here, I'm sitting at my desk in my office, and yes, I'm a business person. As I mentioned, I'm vice president of L.L. Brown and Associates. My wife happened to be the president. We are located here in Seattle, Washington. We had a business in Detroit that we just closed down, and we have operations going on in Europe. Well, I was not always in the position that I'm in right now, because you'll look at me right now and say, well, look at you. You don't have anything to worry about. You're successful. You got this. Well, that may be true, but it didn't start out that way. First of all, I want you to know that you're listening to a person that didn't learn how to read until they were 30 years old. I was illiterate until I was 30 years old. I was born in a section of Detroit. Whatever you can think about in your city that would be the lowest of element in your city, I could top that. I was born in an area in Detroit called Black Bottom. And the title exemplified the conditions. It was all black, and it was the bottom. It was as low as you could go. And I remember conditions were so bad where I lived, my mother used to put cotton in our ears at night to keep the roaches from crawling in. And I've actually known people that had severe pain, and out of just excruciating pain and worrying their parents, the parent got tired and took them to the hospital. Emergency, they would x-ray the child's head and find a live roach on the brain. Now that's what I come from. I also remember how I became illiterate. You know, the power of belief is very interesting. I remember when I was in kindergarten, and this particular day in kindergarten, instead of me drinking my milk during milk time, I decided to take my milk and pour it on the girl's hair in front of me, on her head. Well, the teacher was having a bad day, and I made it worse. And this teacher, when she observed this, she came over, she grabbed me, and she began to shake me. And she told me that I was dumb, I was stupid, I would never amount to anything, you got a learning problem, and she went on and on and on. Now, my interpretation of a learning problem was I would never learn like everyone else. I wouldn't learn how to read or write and function like everyone else did in school. And you want to know something else? My mother taught me to believe everything the teachers tell you. And so when this teacher told me this, she was the authority. Being 5 years old, I accepted it as the truth. So it stands to reason. Just listen to this. It's just like you going out trying to find a job. If you know there's no jobs available for you, then why should you look for something that doesn't exist? Does that make sense to you? So here I was, knowing that I would never learn. So in that situation, going through school was very difficult for me. I think the worst thing was I found myself a junior in high school and I couldn't read or write. As a result of that, I was in gangs when I was 13 years old. I was banging. In one gang fight that I was in, I shot a person and I went to juvenile. I was 13 years old. Now the judge sentenced me for punishment, but it wasn't punishment for me because it was the first time I'd ever slept in a bed by myself. I was getting 3 meals a day. And after spending 6 months there, I was out. I was mainstreamed back into the school system, a system that I couldn't stand because of my behavior. And it's not something that the school did. Anyway, I was often being laughed at in school. And, sometimes when that happened to you, if it happens often enough, you will develop a defense mechanism. My defense mechanism was if you laughed at me in school, you had to fight me out of school. And my calendar stayed booked up. Anyway, to make a long story short, I stayed involved with criminal activities, and finally one day I found myself in front of a judge, and this judge sentenced me to 240 years in prison. That's right, 240 years. And you know what? I thought I was tough. Anything that you think has ever happened to a person has happened to me, a street person or a banger. I've been stabbed. I've been shot in the neck. I've got scars all over my body. I've been burned. I've been hit by a car. I've even been bitten by a gold-toothed woman. But when this judge sentenced me to 240 years, I fainted. Now, I didn't pass out, but I fainted psychologically. It was just like I couldn't hear and I couldn't see anything. And then when I finally came back to reality, the first thing I thought about was, where in the hell did he get that number? Anyway, I couldn't imagine anyone. How do you give a person 240 years? Well, anyway, the procedure is, after sentencing, the marshals will come in and they will handcuff you, shackle you, put you on a white van and drive you to your designated prison. I was sent to a place in Terre Haute, Indiana. It's a federal prison there called Terre Haute. And when I got to Terre Haute, it was, you just had to protect yourself. I was there for 2 months and I got kicked out of Terre Haute, and it was because of my behavior. Well, I was shipped to another place then, and the next place I went to was a place called Leavenworth. And while I was in Leavenworth, I almost had my life taken from me. I got gutted while I was in Leavenworth. And I spent a year in Leavenworth. Gutted mean a person stabbed me in the stomach and they pulled a knife up, and so therefore I have a scar from my stomach up to about here, almost to my chest cavity. And it took a lot of stitches, and I actually went to the infirmary with my guts in my hand. Anyway, after spending the year in Leavenworth, I was sent to another prison in Wisconsin. This prison was different than any other place I'd ever seen. There was a lot of young men and women. I mean men, not women. A lot of young men. And most of these men were minorities. And they were doing 50, 100, 150 years. I had a cellmate that was doing 375 years. He would never get out of prison. Anyway, they had a warden there that's a very good friend of mine right now. And this warden, he decided to call all of the so-called leaders down to the chapel one day for a speech. The prison was out of hand at that time, and whenever you have a prison that's running amok, what will happen is the federal government will send a Hatchet Man into the prison to get it straightened out. The person that he sent in, he was a fair person, but he was lean and mean. And this guy came in and he hit the ground running. The first thing he did was call all of the so-called leaders down to the chapel one day for a talk. And I never will forget this speech. He started out by saying, guys, I'm the new warden here, and I know that you all know. You get the news before the guards do. He said, but my job is to straighten out this prison. He says, I'm not only a warden, but I'm a hatchet man. My job is to straighten it out. And he said, you know something? I do my job real well. Now, he got our attention immediately. And he went on to say that, now, I didn't come here to find out if you're going to help me or work with me. He said, I don't care. He said, but I'm going to straighten it out. I want to find out if you're going to do it the easy way or the difficult way. He said, but if you give me some trouble, he said, I will lock this place up so tight it will take your lawyer 10 years to get you a letter in here. And so anyway, in situations like this, you know, you always have a guy that's outspoken. And this particular person, he was the jailhouse lawyer, you might say. And he stood up and said, hey, told the warden, we got our rights. The warden asked him one question. He said, can you vote? The guy said, no. He said, well, you don't have any rights in here. But since you are the leader of this group, it seems like you're the spokesperson. What I'm going to do, from this day on, you can only make one phone call every 90 days, and you can only speak for 3 minutes. Now just imagine that, having 3 minutes, 12 minutes a year to speak to your loved ones. And he implemented the plan. That was his first plan to let us know that he was not a man to be messing with. Anyway, he said, but I'm going to help you guys. He said, if you want to do this the easy way, I'm going to bring in a seminar. Now listen to this, because here I was illiterate. Has anyone ever talked to you and you didn't understand what they were saying? Well, this is what was happening to me. I was illiterate, and this guy made this statement. He said, I'm going to bring a seminar into the prison. Now, a seminar, I had never heard of that word in my life. Didn't know what a seminar was. And he said, this seminar is based on the implementation of self-image psychology. The word implementation, I thought he was speaking Greek. And then the self-image, I didn't know what a self-image was, but I knew what psychology meant because I had seen a lot of psychologists. You know, whenever you go to a controlled environment, the first thing they do is give you a psychological makeup test. Well, I couldn't take a test because I couldn't read or write, so they implemented the test for me. They read the question, then they read the multiple choice questions, answers, and I selected an answer. And after they evaluated the test, they told me that I had a MAP personality. Now, the letters MAP, the acronym, stands for M, a manipulative, A, aggressive, P, psychopath. That's what they told me I was. And to show you how smart they were, they put all the psychopaths together so that they could learn from each other. But anyway, I stood up and asked, do we have to go to this stuff? And this man, and the warden said, no. He said, and I told him, I said, well, I'm out of here. I'm not going. I just thought it was another way for the prison system to mess with your head. And when I started walking out, and this is what I want everyone that's listening to this tape to do, I want you to start learning how to listen to people that are training you and that are teaching you. Because you never know when someone is going to say something to you that's going to change your life forever. And as I was walking out of this chapel, this guy said, I wish you all would go because we got to pay this guy $5,000 a day to teach you. What went through my head was, what in the heck does a person say to get $5,000 a day? Just out of that, I was so curious, I had to go see what this guy was talking about. The day of the seminar, I didn't know what to expect. But this guy came out, and he wasn't very impressive at all. But when he started talking, it was just like he had been following me around all of my life, making notes on me. And then, I guess I'll share this experience with you. The only thing that I could remember was I started out like, let's say in a room, this room. And it was totally dark. All of the lights was out, the shades were drawn. But as this guy began to present concepts, it was just like someone opened a shade and let some sunlight into my mind. And I spent a couple of days with him. And at the end of these 2 days, you know, I was just on overload. It was just too much information. Now, you got to understand, I couldn't take notes because I couldn't write. And so, but I had a good memory, and I decided to use the information with the wrong motivation. I decided to use it to prove to everyone that it didn't work. Now, I remember the first goal I ever set by intent. My first goal was to go back to school, get a GED. Now, they had a GED program in prison, but I had a problem. I couldn't read. And so what I did was I decided to get some help. It was the first time I'd ever asked anyone to help me. The reason why I'm not ashamed to tell about my background, and I do this everywhere I go right now, is because I stand on the shoulders of a lot of people. About 15 years ago, it was impossible for me to talk about this. But you want to know something? I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm standing on the shoulders of a cellmate that taught me phonics. I'm standing on the shoulders of another cellmate that taught me how to do math. I'm standing on the shoulders of a warden. I'm standing on the shoulders of 3 great mentors. I'm standing on the shoulders of a strong mother. And I'm standing on the shoulders of people that helped me and supported me. This guy taught me phonics. I decided to put myself on a plan of action. My plan of action was to read just 1 paragraph of something every day. And what I want to share with you at this moment is, listen very carefully. It's not the big things that you accomplish in life. It's the little bitty things that add up to the big things that count in life. Because one of the toughest tasks I've ever had in my life was to start reading that 1 paragraph a day. And I remember very clearly it was only 3 sentences. But those 3 sentences was the most difficult undertaking I've ever had. It took me a half an hour to read them. Then I had to go back and read them again because of my comprehension. I didn't understand. And I read them over again. The next day, I read another paragraph. But you want to know something? I almost quit because it was so hard. And that's what I'm saying. You want to know something about champions? They don't give up. They never give up on any task. And I think about it right now, and it frightens me. What if I had quit? What if I had not read the second day a paragraph? I wouldn't be here with you today. I would still be in prison. And so the next day I read another paragraph, and the next day, and the next day, and the next week, and the next week. And after 8 weeks of reading 1 paragraph a day, I changed my paragraphs into pages, my pages into chapters, and my chapters into books. I didn't know what was happening inside of me, but all of a sudden I was developing a thirst for knowledge. I couldn't get enough. I got into the GED program in prison. I got my GED in 2 weeks. You know what I thought about? All of the people that used to tell me how dumb I was. One day I heard about a college program that was taking place in prison. Now, me going to college was just totally unusual. I couldn't even think of going to college. But I began to use the rules in goal setting. I goal set by intent to go to college. But I didn't only goal set to go. I heard someone talking about the dean's list one day, and it sounded very impressive to me, so I goal set to get on the dean's list. The first year, I made it. The second year, I was on the dean's list. The third year, the fourth year, I finished the university, and I finished with a 3.57 grade point average. I was in the top 5% of my graduating class, and you know what I thought about? All of the people that used to tell me how dumb and how stupid I was. Then I discovered I wasn't dumb. I goal set to get out of prison. Now, with 240 years, there's no book that's written on how to get out of prison with 240 years to tell you how. But with goal setting, it worked. I got out of prison. The first year I was out, I was nominated as the most outstanding American in this country. 2 years after I was out, Carter was the president of the United States at that time. He had just signed the phase-out treaty in the Panama Canal. His committee selected me to go to Panama to help with the phase-out treaty. I was in Panama working while I was on parole. Now, this is what's unusual. Do you know you can't go out of your district when you're on parole? And here I was living in Panama. You want to know something? Anything is possible, folks. If the right people tell you you can go to Panama, you can go, even if you're on parole. And when I came back to the U.S., I moved to Seattle. I got a job with an international corporation. I made 50 cents a day while I was in prison. 50 cents a day. And I worked 10 hours a day to get that 50 cents. 2 years after I was out, I was making $1,500 a day. Now I work with companies like IBM, and I make about $30,000, $35,000 to work for 2 days. That's about $15,000 a day, $17,000 a day. Now, I'm not telling you all of these things about myself to be braggadocious, to pat myself on the back, to talk about what a great guy I am. I'm saying this to you for one reason and one reason only. All of you that's listening to this tape right now, you want to know something? I'm no better or no worse than you are. And if I can do all of the things that I've done with the barriers that I put in front of me, what is it that you can't do? I don't care what your situations are. You can always rise above your situations. But you want to know something? Remember this. You can never give up. You can never quit. Now, this book that you have, this is one of the most exciting pieces of materials that I have ever written. And it's designed to help you in your job and work experience. Now, I'm going to ask you to open your book, and I'm just going to go through it very briefly with you, and then after I go through the book, the facilitators and the job coordinators are going to continue this. I want you to listen to me very closely because these things, I've applied them in my life, and I know they work. First of all, the book is called On the Job, 90 Days and Beyond, 31 Essentials for Employment, Retention, and Advancement. Now, I studied people that had poor work habits, and I've studied people that has had excellent work habits. And those people with the excellent work habits always seem to excel on the job, got raises, and always got accolades on the job. Now, I put these 31 essentials in this simple book. First of all, if you would open the cover, the first page, read L.L. Brown and Associates Incorporated, Programs and Services. And this just outlined a lot of the programs that we have and the services that we provide for any organization. If you would turn to the next page, there's a little story on here about myself. It's all about Lester Brown. That's the next page, and the following page. It's all about the companies that I work for and a little bit about my background. And any time that you get ready, you can read through this. The next page is all about Carolyn Scott Brown, who is my wife and the president of this company. Now, Carolyn's background is much like mine. She comes from a single-parent home, 6 children. And you want to know something? I took a gun to try to get out of the ghetto, and you want to know, she took education. Carolyn went through high school. She got a full academic scholarship to Brown, one of the finest universities in the country. Then she got a scholarship to Columbia University in New York, and she went to school, and listen to this, only had 1 B the whole time she was in school. Rest of them were A's. I used to ask her, what did you do for fun? Anyway, the next page, if you would turn to, is an introduction about how I studied people who performed exceptionally well on the job, and people who maintained their jobs and got wage increases on a regular basis. And and how the employers, working with the employees, what they told me they needed in a person or in an employee. After the introduction is a little bit about affirmations. Now, an affirmation, I'm going to explain it to you very briefly, is just a sentence, and it's a positive sentence, stating the way you want to be or something that you want. And if you read these sentences daily, and in this book there are a lot of affirmations I'm going to ask you to read. Affirmations should be read twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And using affirmations effectively will bring you success in every area of your life. I will guarantee it. The next page is how to use this book. First of all, I want you to read through the 31 essentials. It won't take you but a short period of time. And then, after you read it the first time, I want you to continue to read the affirmations at the bottom for the next 60 days. And read them right before you go to bed at night, and Getting up in the morning, for instance, if you're going to work in the morning, take time out and read them. You can read them on the bus or while you're riding to work. The next page, at the right-hand corner of the next page, you'll see the one in the corner. This is the first essential, and it simply read, I'm going to go through it with you, before time. Just being on time isn't good enough for the employer today. If you want to be recognized as an outstanding worker, if your job starts at 8, show up at 7:50 or 7:45. Now, I know maybe some of you say, well, that means I got to get out of bed a little earlier. That's okay, because this is the benefit. Managers, I found out, and supervisors, if the job starts at 8, they're there at 7. And they see everyone that comes into on the job. And they know exactly what time you show up. Those people that show up early and prepare themselves to go to work, they look at them in a positive way. Anytime there is advancement, anytime there is a promotion, anytime there is an opportunity to learn something, they're going to always go to those people first. Now, at the bottom of the page is an affirmation, and it reads, I am always 15 minutes early for work because I enjoy my preparation time. Now, I want you to read that affirmation. Now, this whole book is set up in that manner. Now, what I want the facilitators or the work coordinators to do is I want you to go through this entire book the same way. Read the heading, read the statement, and then read the affirmation. And then after they go through it with you doing this orientation, I want you to do this. I want you to remember something that's so very, very important. And then I want you to continue to read the affirmations. Only those that can see the invisible can do the impossible. But more importantly, the quality and quantity of your life is based on the quality and quantity of your thinking. What's the quality of your thoughts? You see, the only difference between Lester Brown sitting here and Lester Brown 20 years ago is someone taught me how to think better. Thank you. Have a wonderful summer, and maybe next year I'll be able to be with you in person.